6 money traps to avoid in your 30s. You see, from a financial standpoint, that your 30s is your most important decade of your financial life. Why is that? Now you are past the 20s, figure yourself out, because in your 20s, you're trying to find out, okay, what is the ideal career for you? Well, what should you focus on? What is your purpose? You just probably graduate from school. Now, what's next? So you're trying to figure yourself out in your 20s. But in your 30s, now you are a little bit more mature, right? Now you have a little bit more experience, but you're still young enough to apply some of these financial strategies that will make a huge difference in your financial life. Now, assuming what I'm sharing with you that, like most people, you have a stable job, meaning that you do not have the ability to dramatically increase your income, unlike a high income skill. So I am sharing these lessons with you, assuming that you don't have a high income skill, that you have a stable job like everybody else. Because with a high income skill, it means that you could actually dramatically increase your income. So assuming you do not have the ability to increase your income by 10, 20, 30, 50, or even 100% a year, that's who this video is for, which is like most people. And most people, it's not that they don't have the ability to do so, to develop a high income skill, it's just they don't know how, right? They don't know that a high income skill exists, and they don't even understand the possibilities. And if you could avoid some of these money traps in your 30s or even in your 40s, you would put yourself in a position of financial success and be able to provide a better future for your family. Money trap number 1. Buy a house that you can't afford. You see, a lot of times in your 30s, most people, they are thinking about marriage. They're thinking about settling down. They're thinking about having kids. Or maybe you already have kids and you're already married. And one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they want to keep up with the Joneses, right? Because their friends own a certain house, now they want at least in the same neighborhood or the same house, and they want to compare with other people. So they end up buying a house that they actually can't afford. Now you have to understand this, that when it comes to buying your primary residence, your home, your house, it is an expense that affects your other expenses. What do I mean by that? It means that if you move to a certain neighborhood, that house, that home affects your other expenses, meaning the more expensive your home is, it comes with your homeowner insurance, your utilities, where you shop, where your kids go to school, what kind of car do you drive. That affects your other expenses. So it's not just the house itself, but everything else that goes with it. Now that's very, very important to understand. And that's why most people, when they buy a house they can't afford, suddenly, now all the other expenses, they go up dramatically and now they're in debt. I don't want that to happen to you. A while ago, I made a video called, should you rent or should you own? You can click here and check it out. Now in the video, I teach a rule called the 20% rule. What is the 20% rule? So when it comes to owning your home, let's say you have a net worth of $1 million. I believe you shouldn't spend more than 20% of your net worth on your primary residence. So your net worth is $1 million, you shouldn't spend more than $200,000 on your primary residence. You may be thinking, well, Dan, what if I don't have a net worth? I just have income. I haven't built up my net worth yet. What do I do? The same 20 rule applies. So let's say you and your husband or you or your wife together as a household income, you make $10,000 per month. $10,000 per month. Then the same 20 rule applies. You shouldn't spend more than $2,000 a month on your house, your primary residence. And I know that number is low. I know that number is low. The reason it's low is because you want to be able to live a little bit more frugally with your house so that you have more money to put aside so you could save and invest for long-term wealth. Versus if you make $10,000 a month as a household and you're spending 40%, $4,000 a month on your primary residence with all the other expenses, you do the numbers, it's very difficult to have anything left by the end of the month. Does that make sense? Comment below. So that's money trap number 1. Money trap number 2, and that is to buy a car you can't afford. This kind of ties hand in hand with money trap number one. So buying a house you can't afford, buying a car that you cannot afford. I get it. In your 30s, now you're making a little bit more money. Chances are if you are in the corporate world and you are stable and you want to buy that car. I like a new car just as everybody else, right? In my 20s, I was getting a new car every year. So I understand where you are coming from. But financially speaking, it's not a very smart decision. It's not a very smart move because by spending too much money on a car, you cannot afford anything else. I remember when I was making minimum wage in a supermarket at the time, I had a coworker. He was driving a BMW and he was paying $1,000 a month for the lease for his BMW, and he was only making around $2,200 a month. And I thought to myself, how could someone making $2,200 a month, spending $1,000 a month on a car payment on a BMW? Well, it turns out he can't afford it. That's all he's got, right? But he wants to look cool, right? He wants to look good, right? Driving the BMW around, but actually it was very, very difficult. I remember I was sitting in his car and he was thinking, oh my goodness, am I gonna have enough money to pay for the gas for the BMW? Now, that's not being smart. Again, your car payment, your car expense is an expense that controls that affects other expenses. The more expensive your car, the more expensive your insurance. The nicer your car, the more expensive gas that you have to get. The more expensive your maintenance, just like my Bentley, right? It costs a couple $1,000 just for oil change, right? That's what it is. When you drive a luxury car or sports car, everything becomes more expensive. So that's money trap number two, buying a car that you can't afford. Money trap number three, not investing or not investing enough. Now in your 30s, you still think you have a lot of time, right? You still have 35 years before you even worry and think about retirement. Well, the truth is, yes, you have time, but you don't have a lot of time. And most people, they wait too long and they think, oh, I'll wait till I make more money, then I will invest. No, you want to take advantage of the power of compound interest. You want to use it to accumulate your wealth. Even if you put aside a little bit of money every month, invest for the long term. Let's say, for example, you invest $10,000, right? $10,000 since 30 years old. And let's say your investment produces 7% annual return year in and year out. So 7% every year, $10,000 a year. By the time you get to 65 years old, guess what? You would have $1.4 million. $1.4 million. However, if you wait till you are 40 years old, so instead of 30 years old, 40 years old, by the time you retire, you would just have a little bit over $650,000. So 1.4 million, 650 because you waited a decade. Nothing else changes. So time is your friend if you use it wisely. So don't wait to invest. Invest and then wait. Money trap number four, not having a high income skill. See, why do you need a high income skill? Why do you need to actively every year increase your income? You see, you have to understand that with inflation and cost of living going up, wouldn't you agree? Every single year, things are getting more expensive, right? The dollar that used to buy a certain amount of things and items, that dollar is getting thinner and thinner every year. So let's say the cost of living is going up by, let's say 3% every single year. So it means that if your income stays the same year after year, it's the same amount, you are getting 3% poorer every single year. When you take that out every 5, 10 years, 15 years, you look at that. This is why most people struggle, because the earning abilities, right? The rate that the income is growing is not as fast as inflation. So even though if you're staying the same, you're actually getting behind. So every single year in your 30s, you should strive to increase your income every single year, actively, your active income. Every single year you want to strive to earn more. Now the challenge is, depends on your profession, depends on your job or the company you work for, that may or may not be the case. In fact, comment below if you haven't gotten a pay raise or you haven't earned more money for a number of years. Comment below, right? So that other people could see that's just a fact in most industries. Now, am I talking about a side hustle like what most people talk about? I'm not talking about a side hustle. A high income skill is different from a side hustle. What is a high income skill? High income skill simply means income on your own terms, meaning you could generate income where you want, with whom you want. It is not industry dependent, it is not location dependent, and it's not company dependent. So it doesn't matter if you work for this company or this industry or that industry. With a high income skill, you could work in different industry. It is transferable. This is why it is not a job, it is a skill set that you offer to the marketplace in exchange of money. Now, what are some of those skill sets I'm talking about? Could be blogging, it could be YouTube, it could be closing, it could be digital marketing, it could be copywriting, it could be consulting. Whatever skills that you could offer from the comfort of your own home, that it's beyond than your current occupation, I define that as high income skill. Not having a high income skill puts you in a huge disadvantage. Why? Because now you're restricted, right? Your earning potential, there's a cap to how much you could earn. So if you want to develop your high income skill and you just want to find out more about it, click the link below. I'm going to teach you a couple of skill sets that I believe are extremely powerful that also has helped my students from all over the world to be able to earn more money in a meaningful way, right? Earn more money than they could ever imagine and be able to provide a better future for their family. So make sure you check it out. Check out my masterclass. Money trap number 5, not having financial goals. I am shocked how many people I talk to actually don't have financial goals. When I ask them, okay, so what are some of your financial goals in the next 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now? Most people is like, I don't know, I guess I want to be more successful. I said, do you want to be making more money? I said, yeah, I guess I want to be making more money, but it's not very clearly defined. So the first thing you want to do in your 30s is make sure that you have financial goals. So how much cash you want to save up in your bank account? How much savings do you want to have? What kind of investments do you want to own? How big of a portfolio you want to have? How much money you want to be earning on a monthly basis? Those should be clearly defined. See, the problem is this. Most people, we are taught to climb that ladder, right? Ladder of success. And they say, you know what, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get a certificate, I'm going to get a diploma, I'm going to get a degree. And that's great. Nothing wrong with going back to school, right? For some, maybe they get a degree and then they go back, they want to get an MBA, a PhD, and that's fine, but most people do that because they are living up to other people's expectations. So the first degree didn't get the results that they want, didn't bring them the success that they want, but then they thought, well, I guess the logical thing is I go back and get a second one. Now, if that's what you want to do and that's your vocational goals, you want to be a doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer, that's perfectly fine. But what I notice is people try to climb this ladder and they realize actually the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. That by the time they get up to the ladder and they look down, it's like, this is not what I want. This is, how did I end up here? And now they need to climb down back the ladder, right? Climb down and then they got to find a different wall to lean against, and that wastes a lot of time. Versus if you're clear of, that's my goal. My financial goals is this and this and this, and you ask yourself, is this the right ladder and am I leaning against the right wall? Isn't that a smarter way of doing it? So having clarity of your financial goals, I think are extremely critical. You want to avoid that money trap of not having financial goals, because clarity is power. And what is power? Power is the ability to act. When your idea, when your vision is clear, the path is easy. It's only when it's vague and when you're not so sure what your goals are, then you're all over the place, right? Instead of being focused. So money trap number 5, not having financial goals. Money trap number 6, not being financially literate. Now it's interesting, in the school system, we are taught how to read, how to listen, how to write, right? How to be literate in the language of English, but we were never taught how to be financially literate. And this is why we have so many problems financially out in the world, in our society, because we were never taught some of these things. When I say financial literacy, I'm not talking about that you need to be an accountant, you need to crunch all the numbers, but I am talking about knowing some of the basics, such as budgeting, being able to read your own basic financial statements, understanding credit cards and credit scores, being able to understand some of these basic terms in terms of loans and interest rates, right? 401k or some basic investment, if it's real estate, if it's index fund, having a basic understanding of how that works, that's all I'm talking about. I'm not asking you to be a sophisticated investor unless that's what you want to do, but for most people, that's probably not doable for most. But at the very least, you want to be able to, it's like in English. You don't need to learn how to write a poetry, right? How to write like a beautiful essay, but it's nice to know at least you know ABC to Z, right? Be able to understand the basics. You can use those words to combine it into a sentence. That's all I'm talking about. When it comes to financial literacy, we just don't know. And ignorance costs money, right? What you don't know will hurt you. The books that you don't read will cost you money. So spend a little bit of time, even read a couple books on this topic, go to some blog posts, read on it, and teach your kids. Don't be afraid to talk about money at the dinner table. Don't be afraid to talk about money with your spouse. Don't be afraid to talk about money with your kids. Educate them, educate yourself, right? Give them that advantage, give them a heads up, right? Compared to everybody else. So comment below, out of these 6 money traps, which one you are going to avoid in your, doesn't matter if it's in your 20s, in your 30s, or even in your 40s and 50s, which one you are going to avoid. Comment below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button if this is the first time you're watching our videos and you want to learn more about finance, money, and wealth. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification.